Hi, this is Parth from Vista Solutions, and thank you for your time for joining this webinar today. I'll be taking you through NetSuite as a preferred platform for manufacturers of the modern businesses. So let me quickly start sharing my screen. I have a presentation deck, and then we'll take a look at the product, the NetSuite platform in itself. Okay, so as we all know, we are going to talk about NetSuite as the platform and how manufacturers can boost their business processes and practices through NetSuite. A little bit about me. My name is Parth Virkud. I am working with Business Solutions as a project leader. I have a global exposure of about 30 plus projects across geographies and across business verticals, including manufacturing, of course, e-commerce, retails, wholesale distribution, project management, services, etc. So I'm going to take you through the product and through this presentation deck today. Let's take a quick look at our agenda. We'll talk about NetSuite as a platform, which is our preferred platform for today's modern manufacturers. We'll talk about some key benefits and features of this particular platform, how manufacturing modules within NetSuite are offering the companies today. We'll take a look at the product in itself, and then we'll try to answer the two major important questions: why NetSuite and why Business Solutions? Let's dive in one point at a time. Let's talk about NetSuite. As you all know, NetSuite is a product offering of Oracle. This is a platform as a service, as we like to call it. NetSuite is a full-blown business package which encompasses ERP, CRM, production management, sales, operations, purchase, etc. This is a full package, a unified, optimized platform that gives you the best of breed when it comes to ERP and CRM. NetSuite is known to be 100% cloud-based platform, which means everything that you see is 100% real time. It is hardware diagnostic, which means you need not have a specific hardware for it. You need not have to maintain databases or servers. All you need to have is a device that is internet capable and a browser. That is it. It automates all your processes right from the front end processes, which means your sales representatives or your production planners can get onto this platform for their business operations, and at the same time your back office operations are all automated. We will take a look at this during our webinar today in the product tour. Some key highlights or benefits of this particular platform. Of course, we talked about 100% real-time visibility, which is something that today's business decision makers would want to have come what may. It is a platform that gives you 2 upgrades year on year. Mind you, these are not really updates, these are upgrades which allow all the 40,000 customers running on top of NetSuite to be on the latest instance at any point in time. Unlike most of the other platforms, or rather all the other ERPs out there, you would really get a seamless upgrade from an older version to a newer version for twice every year. At this point in time, the latest NetSuite version that we have is the release 2017.2, and in the coming months we should expect 2018.1, so on and so forth. Of course, it is known to reduce the financial close time this is a preferred platform by accountants. And once we get to the platform, you would know exactly why is that so. Precisely, NetSuite takes care of the GL impacts all by itself, which means there is no accounting or no batch processing required to be done by the accountant. Most of the products out there have a transactional entry, which is nothing but the operational transaction in itself. That can be a sales order, invoice from my vendor, manufacturing work, assembly build, and eventually there is a financial entry to second to that, which is done typically by the accountant of the company. Essentially, that is more or less a journal voucher. But what NetSuite does is it unifies this process and has the general ledger impact taken care of by the operational transaction in itself. Thereby, when it comes to financials, NetSuite is a preferred platform for financial accountants. Quickly moving forward, some fun facts about NetSuite. NetSuite was a company born in the cloud architecture, whereby it is called the world's #1 cloud-based ERP platform. This is known to reduce IT costs by reducing the total costs of ownership. It comes up with a business model where you do not have to invest on there is no capital investment, but there will be an operational expense in means of your subscription with NetSuite. It is proven across business verticals. It is agile enough that can be tailored to fit your specific business requirements. And of course, that means we have a very reduced time to deploy this particular platform to your needs. It is extremely fast, scalable enough to support your company from under 10 users to an enterprise level. And at this point in time, it is already trusted by over 40,000 customers across the globe. Some key areas that NetSuite has, of course, this is just the partial feature list, but it takes care of end-to-end finance and accounting, end-to-end e-commerce and marketplace. So you can also host your website within this particular platform. So mind you, there is no additional platform required for any of these features. All of these features are completely hosted from within the package NetSuite itself. You can have an end-to-end order management, which means you can have your sales orders, your shipment tracking, your invoicing, customer payments, so on and so forth. You have an end-to-end purchase process as well. You can have requisitions, you can have receipts, shipments tracking in, vendor invoicing, payments to your vendors, bank reconciliations, so on and so forth. Your entire employee management. Sooner, NetSuite is coming out with Suite People, which would give you hire to retire, payroll processing, leave management, etc. Lead to cash is just a part of the CRM module where you have lead tracking, pipeline analysis, opportunity management. You can generate multiple quotes and how NetSuite would go ahead and track the projected and weighted total against these particular quotations in my pipeline. So that gives me an end-to-end visibility, real-time visibility over my pipeline by sales representatives. Support ticket management, which is for grievances, customers, post-sale customer cases. NetSuite has the ability to go ahead and track these customer cases within the platform with the end-to-end issue resolution, knowledge-based kind of functionalities, which companies can take utmost advantage of. NetSuite also has marketing management, where you can go ahead and create beautiful looking email templates, send them across as email blasts to hundreds and thousands of leads. These can be email marketing campaigns. You have sales campaign functionalities and end-to-end statistics when it comes to the marketing, when you can go ahead and track the cost per lead, you can track the return on investment that you have gotten from one specific marketing campaign, what are the number of converts, end-to-end lead source management. Different aspects of NetSuite for different business verticals will be covered in our future webinars. Can also follow us on our YouTube channel, where a couple of these webinars are already up. So you can take a look at our e-commerce and marketplace webinar, or other webinars that talk about specific key areas. In our webinar today, of course, we will focus more on the manufacturing modules and aspects of NetSuite, and we'll see how that can benefit today's manufacturing companies across the globe. So quickly moving forward, we'll talk about manufacturing and its offerings within NetSuite. So by now you would have realized that NetSuite is one platform for all your IT solutions. That means that can be inventory management, that can be supply chain, item costing, e-commerce, that can be your manufacturing in itself, along with your work order assemblies, your routing, buy work centers, or that can be a sales representative on the field selling it across or generating leads. Each and every aspect of your business is captured within one unified platform. So NetSuite calls it as one source of truth, as opposed to having multiple solutions and multiple systems where different players from within the organization work in that particular system, and then that creates silos and hairballs for integration purposes. And then one upgrade, the other fails to upgrade. Many a times, one of the system cannot talk to the other system, which leads to a really big IT disaster. NetSuite has completely eliminated that with this approach, where you have a unified database for your entire business operations. That can be end-to-end manufacturing planning, employee expense tracking, timesheet management, so on and so forth. All of it within one platform. Manufacturers, or they can of course be retailers and wholesale distribution companies today, you would be glad to know that NetSuite was ranked as the best practices platform in the year 2015 by Frost and Sullivan. This is because NetSuite gives you a very tight control over your inventory lifecycle. It reduces your costs, of course, your total cost of ownership of the system, but also lets you go ahead and manage your internal costing. It increases customer satisfaction, lets you go ahead and closely monitor the entire operation. That can be an inventory specific operations or a sales purchase operation. At the same time, it lets you go ahead and have an inventory replenishment plan. This can be demand-based, supply-based, so on and so forth. NetSuite is known for a 360-degree view of the customer. It lets you have entire visibility as to items ordered previously, what can be upsold. So it has an end-to-end upsell manager out of the box right there. Of course, it has a unique omni-channel experience, which lets you have a very seamless approach towards your customers and lets you do a lot more. We'll talk about a couple of manufacturing features, and of course, we will go ahead and take a look at the product in itself, the platform, which is NetSuite. But the features that we will be talking about in depth are right here on your screen. Of course, you have your end-to-end engineering, where you can design your product, build an assembly bill of material product, which takes care of all your components, your lead yields. You can have variants of different components, obsolete dates, so on and so forth. That lets you take care of your entire bill of material within the platform. And we will see how seamlessly that is tracked within the platform with the sales, with the purchase, with the manufacturing aspects and modules of NetSuite. That lets the companies have a very tightly woven order management platform that would let you accelerate demand planning and thereby has a end-to-end supply chain management that of course lets you have a procurement process, a requisition from my employees, or a replenishment process based on the average lead time or the reordering limits of a particular item, all the way until shipping that of course to your customer. We have end-to-end production planning mechanisms. We will see how production planners can function within NetSuite, given that it has work order, work center planning, and how the different work centers can be utilized for different routing processes uh, for manufacturing. We will see how production control can be taken place within NetSuite. Not to forget, we have service and support functionalities as well. So that takes care of all the warranties of return mechanisms from customers, end-to-end visibilities through your supply chain will let you also return it back to your vendors. All of this within NetSuite. And since we are talking about all these operational aspects of manufacturing, we need not forget that these are tightly tied to the financial module as well. So each and every transaction that we talked about and we will see are tightly woven with the functional financial modules within the platform that takes care of the general ledger impacts right there and then, real time. And not to forget, it lets companies get onto the commerce, so it pushes the companies to the next level to be more customer driven by taking care of all the back end processes in itself. Tries to automate and optimize all the processes. This is just a sample planning dashboard of how manufacturers can use it today. This lets you have different work orders at different work centers. So you can have multiple work centers. This can be different machine resources, labor resources, and how NetSuite would actually let you go ahead and track the visibility of each and every work center by these resources. You can also have a work center wise planning tool that can let you have a look at all the work orders being worked at a specific work center. This lets you have a very detailed overview of your plan for the next days. That can be a weekly or a daily plan. Of course, production planners love this kind of an approach that lets you have absolutely everything within one unified platform. Manufacturers within NetSuite also tend to use inventory capabilities and end-to-end warehouse management systems. This lets you do kitting, work orders, assemblies, lot numbers. This essentially comes into picture for all the food and beverages customers utilizing NetSuite when you have to track the expiration dates and the shelf life periods of your items. Of course, NetSuite lets you have barcoding functionalities for scanners where you can have all 2D scanners, track your assembly bill of material items, track them during manufacturing, and also utilize this capability for picking, packing, and shipping. Lets you have end-to-end landed cost functionality, which lets you take the advantage of the platform to calculate the average cost, the real average cost of a particular item, which again automatically transcends into your shipments and thereby becomes your cost of goods sold at a real time. It has open APIs across, thereby you can actually go ahead and integrated with different systems. So you can have a shipping partner, you can have a different courier company, or we can actually go ahead and integrate with all such open API systems outside of NetSuite. And not to forget, you can have end-to-end trend graphs or good-looking dashboards, real-time dashboards giving real-time visibility to today's business decision makers on the fly. All of this because of NetSuite's anywhere, anytime approach. You have native to NetSuite Android and iOS applications, which can be found on iTunes and on Google Play Store. Once you install them, you can go ahead and log into your NetSuite instance and see good looking dashboards, your operations, absolutely everything right within the application. And not to forget, since this is a cloud-based platform, you can always, to view more details, go ahead and log in to www.netsuite.com and get your work done. These are again certain sample dashboard portlets of what NetSuite has to offer when it comes to capacity planning or loading functionalities. You have end-to-end work center capacities where you can determine different work centers and their loads. Thereby, you can plan your capacity ahead of time, which lets you make the most advantage of the platform, given that all your manufacturing details and data resides within NetSuite. Also, you can have a loading graph which talks about your different processes, that is my manufacturing route, and thereby lets you have the loading graph based on these processes or operational tasks within NetSuite. All of these are interactive dashboard portlets, which means if I want to learn anything more about these dashboard portlets or anything on my dashboard, I can click on it and that'll take me precisely to that step within manufacturing. So that gives me an end-to-end drill down functionality. And never to forget, everything that you see within NetSuite is absolutely real time. So let's get into the product itself to learn more of what all we can do with NetSuite. I'll go back to a web browser. All I have to do is go to www.netsuite.com. That's the NetSuite's page. I can go ahead and log in. This will take me to my login credentials page, where I can go ahead and put in my login credentials. This is, of course, a license-based product, so you have named users, your production planners, your sales representatives, your accountants, CEOs, etc. can have different accesses within NetSuite. It is a role-based platform, so different people can have different access with different authorities and permissions that will let them go ahead and log into NetSuite to get into their specific dashboard. For example, this dashboard lets me take a look at the pipeline by sales representative, lets me take a look at the trend graph for expenses by period. Of course, everything here is intuitive and interactive, so I can go ahead and change the look and feel of my dashboard based on my requirement. If I don't want to look at the expenses by period, I can do it for the quarter or yearly expenses as well. I can do end to end. Everything that you see is interactive in such a way that you can actually go ahead and change the look and feel based on your need. So everything is drag and drop. I can, of course, to learn anything more about it, check on how these debt to total assets are calculated. So here are my payables, credit card balances, so on and so forth. That makes up the total. Also, I can turn the trend analysis right away by a click, and that'll take me to the trend analysis graph in itself to compute how this has come up. These can be exported into your needed formats. Thereby, you can actually present beautiful looking diagrams or beautiful looking reports to your management. Okay, going back to manufacturing, of course, Before we touch base with the hardcore manufacturing aspects as to planning, work order, and assembly builds, we will take a look at different aspects of NetSuite or different modules of NetSuite. NetSuite is a modular product, so you have different modules taking care of these business processes, right from banking, purchase, you have sales, end-to-end customer management, employee-related transactions, human resource tracking, inventory management for all your transfers and movements. You have end-to-end manufacturing, which is something we will take a look at in detail. This is a modular product, thereby different modules are working in sync to make your platform a unified platform. So I'll go ahead and switch my role quickly to a production in charge that lets me take a look at the production in charge and his dashboard. So here I have my work center capacity. I have a couple of reminders. Mind you, everything right here is 100% real time. So for example, the moment I have a sales order coming in, I can have a process that can actually go ahead and automatically create a work order if this particular product does not exist in my inventory at this point in time, which means I can take care of process manufacturing or end-to-end niche manufacturing based on my requirement. Everything can be right here on my reminders, 100% real time. So I have KPIs specific to work orders and specific to planning for production. Everything again here is 100% drill down. So here I have the loading diagram. If I want to learn anything about it, I can just hover my mouse over it and that takes me to a detailed view of my different load centers. So here I have different work centers and the graph that takes me to the loading center, loading of each and every work center. I can have customized portlets as to committed late work centers by date. I can have different manufacturing operation tasks, so I can have an overview of which of the manufacturing work order is in what state. So I see these are released, this one is closed already, and these are yet in process. And of course, I can set up my own shortcuts right on the dashboard that will take me to different process pages within NetSuite. And every time, everything you see within NetSuite is drilled down. So, for example, if work orders released gives me a count of 213, I can click on it. That takes me to a page which would enlist all the work orders which are released at this point in time. And of course, everything is drilled down to an extent that I can completely drill down one more time to take a look at this particular work order by just one click. So here I have the work order right on my page, right on my screen. I see that this work order is released and what all other items, component items right here. This work order is created for a customized picture frame. Now, if I want to keep an eye out on this particular work order, I have a functionality that I can go ahead and follow this transaction. This is just like any social media channel that you might have seen or experienced so far. NetSuite lets you have a social media like look and feel and approach when it comes to transactions. So if I follow this particular transaction, I'm going to have real-time updates through emails whenever something happens with this transaction. That would mean any activity happening here, any history happening here would let me have a real-time, 100% real-time update through an email notification from within NetSuite. So quickly going back to my processes within NetSuite, I have, let's get into one of my dashboard. So this would be, for example, a work center capacity that lets me take a look at my different work centers. If I want to take a look at one specific work center, I can also filter that down and print it out if I want to take this to my management to talk about my different work centers and how how the capacity is planned, and if we need to have different machines or more machines in that particular work center as opposed to the other, I can actually go ahead and create all those reports from within NetSuite to justify. That is a huge bonus to the production planners today. So let me go ahead and dive deep into a manufacturing process. Let's take a look at all my late work orders and let's go ahead and process one of these. So of course, I can go ahead and take a look at different work orders right here. This lets me have a tree diagram of the list view of all my work orders. Let's just dive in deep in one of this work order. For example, let's take this one. So this work order number 291 is already released, I see, and it is for one specific customer for a wooden server rack with drawers. Let's take a look at this bill of material. This is my assembly item, as NetSuite calls it. The assembly item is nothing but a, a, the bill of material item in reality. So this is how it looks like, and I can check on more details by one click. This is a relational database, so everything that you see within NetSuite can be clicked through to get into the related record or the transaction or the master itself. Here, this is the item master that lets me have end-to-end inventory management that can be for reordering points, for safety stock levels, or for demand planning purposes. At the same time, I can have different views as to which locations or which warehouses have this particular item in stock already. Do I have vendors if in case I purchase it instead of manufacturing it? And I have an end-to-end manufacturing module running at par with the bill of material itself. So here I see that this server rack, the wooden server rack, is actually made up of a specific plywood item. This plywood item, again, if I want to learn more about it, all I need to do is just click on it and that opens up as a component item in itself. So I can have different plywood sheets. That's a drawer tower assembly, a drawer assembly, and then I have a hinge, a stand. I can have composite seats. So basically I can go ahead and determine different components to make this bill of material item. And everything right here is drilled down 100%. So I can have sub-assembly items as well. So you see that I have a bill of material item, which in our case is this item, the wooden server rack. And right here under manufacturing, I have the different components. And one of the component here is an assembly item in itself, which is the drawer tower. So I can have sub-assembly items within a parent assembly item as well. And like I said, everything is clicked through, so I can learn more about it by just one click, and that takes me to the details of the drawer tower assembly set. That was my assembly, that was my inventory item, which is one of the components of my parent assembly item. Going back to the bill of material, I can have a track of the yields, the component yields. I can have, of course, I can set the quantities required to make this particular bill of material, and I can have a revision date that takes care of my different variants within the product, which means on the fly I can choose when a specific component here will become obsolete and a new component needs to be effective starting the day next. So that means I can have variants and revisions of those variants on the fly, automated, without a manufacturing production planner actually having to log into NetSuite and do it. So there I have all my revisions and obsolete management mechanisms out of the box. Here I can have a routing record that takes care of my manufacturing process in itself, which of course leads me to the steps. We can have different steps, different sequential operations. Each operation will be taken up in one of the work centers, and that will be linked to a cost template I can default the setup time and the runtime needed for these particular aspects. Of course, I have end-to-end costing mechanisms also. So NetSuite would let you have a standard costing that can enable accountants to actually track the work in progress and the cost involved in manufacturing. Let's take a look at the manufacturing routing record. So the manufacturing routing would be the parent record when it comes to my end-to-end tracking of the sequence. So here I have different operations across different work centers where I can go ahead and default the machine resources and the labor resources needed in order to function this particular or operate this particular task. I, of course, have a default setup time and runtime, and I can also set up lags and the lag amounts right here. NetSuite also has a functionality where you can auto-calculate these lags based on your need. If that is not the case, you can, of course, not utilize this feature and let your production planner enter the lags by himself. Quickly going back to my bill of material item, I also have every other aspect regarding to the web store. If I have accounting related to it, I can go ahead and check on the different accounts set up for it. I can have a tab that talks about my related transactions. And mind you, this is the assembly bill of material item. So whatever you're seeing right here on the screen is basically right there on the bill of material item itself. So that takes me to the related transactions of all the shipments, all the invoices, all the sales orders, all the work orders, etc. I have variance accounts as well. So basically that will let me have production quantity variance, price variance, purchase price variance, so on and so forth. And this being an end-to-end tracking system, you can actually go ahead and drill down by just clicking on it. So of course, different people have different roles and accesses. Based on our authorities, we can design which person needs to have an access to this particular register and so on and so forth. All right, going back to my work order, this was the work order that I found was released. Now we'll go ahead and take the route for manufacturing all this particular wooden shelf, the server rack. So the first step would be, again, I can have dashboard reminders or email reminders for released work orders to have for my store manager. So he gets a issue component notification right on the dashboard, which would be, let me just quickly take you to the dashboard to show you the reminder portlet one more time. So I can have a reminder portlet specific to different users. Different users would then get their specific reminders. Release work orders can likewise go to my store manager, where he can go ahead and just a click of a button can issue those components to the production team. So here I have a linked transaction. This is again for the same work order I was talking about. For this assembly item, of course, that takes up the manufacturing route, I can issue the following components. These are defaulted from the bill of material entry that transcends to the work order initially, and from the work order are taken up in the issue components. Of course, if at a given point in time I'm manufacturing in batches, I can actually reduce the or manipulate the issuing components likewise and then save it. This would be my first transaction after work order. So I have a work order, and then this is my components issued against this particular work order. So going back to the work order, now you would see initially it was released, and now since we have already begun working on it, it now says it is in process. Going further, here under related records, I would see that there is a components issue done by my team on so and so date. Of course, the work order also talks about the different operations. These are the different operations and the operation names at the different work centers that need to be taken up by my manufacturing team. It has end-to-end quality control mechanisms which lets me go ahead and create tasks for my quality inspector. I can have QC quality check requests as well. Of course, I can schedule my inspections and schedule my manufacturing operations likewise from within the tool. Just a quick note, each and every transaction within NetSuite, each and every record within NetSuite has an end-to-end communication or activity task log, which means I can go ahead and create a new activity or a phone call or a user event right on the record in itself that can be assigned to a specific person. Then NetSuite can notify that person over email out of the box. This can be done for phone calls, phone logs, events, user notes, so on and so forth. And NetSuite has end-to-end audit trail functionalities. So here I would see who created these records, what time, what date stamp was that on, when was it modified, whether it was modified, if it was, what was the old value, what is the new value, so on and so forth. So an end-to-end visibility of my manufacturing operations, or for that matter, an end-to-end audit trail for my management is something that NetSuite has out of the box. Going back to my process, I've already issued components. Now my manufacturing team is already taking up the manufacturing. Once they are done, a click of a button will take them to the completion record itself. The completion record would look somewhat like this, where I can go ahead and enter the the serialized number or the lot numbered item. Of course, the example that we are taking into consideration is that of a server rack. If that is a food or beverage assembly bill of material or some electronic kind of a bill of material, we will have a setup that takes care of the serialized number that can be an IMEI code or the expiration date of that lot, so on and so forth, and that can be done right away. I will go ahead and set up my starting operation, my ending operation. Of course, this can be completed in batches also. So say end of the day, only the first and the second operation are done. I can go ahead and track it that way as well. For my example's sake, I can put it in a way that my entire operation is done. Here is where I can enter different machine resources or labor resources working on this. So here I can manipulate that data, and then I can either have NetSuite to record the setup times, or I can manually also input the setup times. So I can go ahead and record the setup times for this particular staining job, say about 20 minutes, and the runtime was about 5 minutes. Then I have the dry time. The setup time was just about 2 minutes, but then it took about 10 minutes to dry off. Then I have the assembly components. The setup was done in about 5 minutes, whereas the runtime of this assembly was 15 minutes. So this can be filled in real time by your team, by your assembly production team, right out of the box. And that's where I can go ahead and process my work order completion transaction. So my work order transaction is now processed firstly by the store manager to issue components, and then by my production in charge or my shop floor in charge to track completion of the work order. And mind you, each and every transaction, like I said earlier in our presentation deck, takes care of its own GL impact. So right away, it takes care of end-to-end general ledger impacts as to my labor costs, my manufacturing work in progress, absolutely everything right away. So that leaves absolutely no headache for my accountants to actually bog down the manufacturing expenses and then put in the relevant journal vouchers, because NetSuite automates this process, and this is how it does it. I'll quickly go back to my manufacturing completion. Let's go back to the work order in itself. Right here, I see that this completion was created from my work order 0291. Here it is in progress is now. I can go ahead and check on the related records. Here I see I have an order issue, of course, for components issuing. And then I also have a completion record. Now my production in charge will get another reminder to actually go ahead and close this particular work order. Of course, I can also go ahead and have a back flush mechanism right away, which means NetSuite would then capture all the components, consumption of the components right away when the completion record is done. So those kind of automations can also be done. That leaves absolutely no area untouched for inventory adjustments, which of course automates the process with the backflush functionality. Likewise, if I have manufacturing sub-assembly items, which in our case I did, I can also mark the sub-assembly items random, which means I can build them on the fly right here through this work order. I need not have multiple sub-assembly item work orders. Of course, certain businesses need that functionality, so that is a personal preference. We can utilize that functionality as well. So with this, my production in charge is now ready to close the order. I'm going to go ahead, click on close. That takes me to a page where it confirms all the details. So my promise date was so and so. What is the real date? Of course, the platform knows. This, well, this is about 2 years late, apparently. Nevertheless, it does talk about different components and the work order quantities. I have the routing items as well. So this talks about the different labor items, all the runtime items, and the total minutes, so on and so forth right away. And here I have the work order against which I'm entering this completion. I'll go ahead and save my transactions right here. And now if I go back, it gives me a confirmation that the transaction was saved successfully. Now if I go back to the work order, which is again just a click, I would see that this work order is now closed. So this was my end-to-end process for a work order tracking. So end-to-end process would include your production plan that of course lets you have a schedule for the quality control, for the route, for different operational tasks that can be of course not just within NetSuite, but you can end-to-end track them and manage them through work centers in this assembly process. So we went over an end-to-end manufacturing work order assembly process. Of course, NetSuite also lets you have a one-step assembly route. This essentially happens for small kitting companies where you need not go ahead and track the entire route, but just a couple of components come together to make one big product. NetSuite also offers a feature which is called work orders and assembly builds, which of course can be taken up where if you create a work order, I'll just quickly go to the recently created work order. We can go ahead and not utilize the end-to-end routing. This is the work in progress feature. If this is not utilized, this becomes a one-step process. Right after it is released and formed by my in charge, I can actually go ahead and just create an assembly build transaction, which basically consumes all the components and puts them in the finished good. So I can go ahead and based on my personal preferences, either take the routing way, which is what we saw, or take a very simple one-step solution way, which can also let you automate your processes to an extent. Typically, smaller manufacturing companies go around with the one-step solution. If you are a larger organization and are willing to track your manufacturing times and work in progress to a good level, routing is something that we would want you to go ahead with. Different aspects within NetSuite have different dashboards. I can have a production dashboard, I can have a demand planning dashboard, I can have, well, my warehouse managers can have receiving shipment dashboard. So here, of course, I get to see all the purchase orders that I'm yet to receive. Likewise, my warehouse manager can take a look at all the sales orders that are yet to be shipped across or yet to be manufactured in our case. So different dashboards can come into picture for different business purposes. So that was the product, that was the platform and its capability when it comes to manufacturing in specific. Of course, if you have a need to take a look at any specific requirement herein, we would like to hear back from you and we'll take this forward. Going back to our presentation deck, now comes the big question, why NetSuite? So let me tell you, NetSuite actually is known as the most agile and most scalable platform today that lets you have a complete visibility over your business. That can be through real-time dashboard, mobile phone applications for iOS and for Android. And of course, it is future-proof. Like I said earlier, NetSuite upgrades itself twice every year. So at any point in time, each and every company running on NetSuite will be always on the latest application ever, always. So here, of course, you can utilize the platform and scale up with it. You can scale horizontally as well as vertically. You can have different modules implemented. So for example, you start off with a basic financial platform, then you take up fixed assets, then you take up inventory modules, then you take up CRM, so on and so forth. At the same time, you can scale up vertically, that you can expand your user base, you can add on more users, you can have a very complex and diversified supply chain without really having to change the platform. NetSuite can grow with you. NetSuite was a company that was born in the cloud. So that means its architecture was designed for cloud businesses. It is built for modern businesses. Of course, it has different products catering to different verticals. So it has a solution specific for manufacturing, specific for retailers, specific for project management and service-oriented companies, and it is best fit for small, medium-sized, and enterprise-level customers, since this is a platform that grows along with you. It is highly secure, at par with the banking solutions out there. So this being on cloud would still let you have a very highly secured infrastructure with the 5 data centers that NetSuite has at this point. NetSuite has already announced 5 more data centers in the coming years. NetSuite was ranked as the topmost growing financial management system in the year 2015. This was a report published by Gartner, and this was published in the year 2016, and you would see some of its competitors also show a negative growth, while NetSuite has shown a staggering 45% growth as a financial management system. I could totally see how the GL ledger, general ledger impacts being automated works in the favor of NetSuite, and you would agree with me on this one. The other big question, why Business Solutions? We are preferred partners with NetSuite. We have implemented many successful projects when it comes to NetSuite, of course, across different verticals. We have, these examples are, of course, talking about e-commerce, but we also have many manufacturing companies out there running on NetSuite, right from furniture manufacturers to high-end fabric, etc., garment manufacturers, etc. We at Vista are invested for your success. We are not just a software development company, but we are focused towards consulting the best industry practices for your vertical to customize the platform based on your requirements. And of course, if you want, we can integrate your platform, your NetSuite, with third-party tools. That can be a third-party logistics center, uh, that can be a courier mechanism, or that can also be a POS. With our strong team of 200 plus professional services employees, we have different verticals, right from business analytics, e-commerce to CRM, so on and so forth. So a very successful track record of good projects across the globe. We have four offices globally present in 4 countries. If you have any questions, feel free to get back to us. You can write to us at feedback@bistasolutions.com. That is feedback@bistasolutions.com. If you want to get in touch with me, you can write to me at parth.virkud@bistasolutions.com. All the email addresses are right there on your screen. You can learn more about us on our website, which is www.bistasolutions.com. And of course, you would see a whole lot of customer testimonial videos, use cases, blogs, so on and so forth. We'd be glad to learn more and hear from you to take this forward. Thank you for your time. Good day.